Welcome, everyone, back to the Boiling Point Podcast. This is episode 19, the Christmas Casual. I am joined here as my special guest, Mizpah, a.k.a. Nick. We're going to just discuss Christmas and the holidays. But before we jump into our topic today, I'm going to refer everybody, if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the episodes that you watch, please like and subscribe and share the videos both on YouTube. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/The Boiling Point Podcast. You can also support the podcast by going to bonfire.com/store/JDEDESIGNz, and that's with a Z, and buy some apparel. You can also go to bonfire.com/The Boiling Point Podcast and get yourself some Boiling Point apparel, some nice long sleeve t-shirts. We have there the tank tops. Yes, there's the Boiling Point mug, which a couple of people have purchased already and have given some good reviews. They like the mug very much. So if you enjoy the podcast, please go like, subscribe, share, and buy some things.
And Christmas is coming.
Yes, Christmas is coming, so buy some shirts. They're nice quality. I'm wearing one right now. This is the white one that I usually wear on the show. It's my favorite. But we also have tank tops. There's hoodie sweatshirts. So please go and buy something for the holidays and support the podcast. It'll help us keep it going. So now that we paid the bills, let's talk about Christmas and the holidays. We just had Thanksgiving, which I'm sorry to everybody, we did not have a special Thanksgiving episode. I decided to just take Thanksgiving off and enjoy turkey and just relax for a couple of days. So I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. I know you spent it with your family.
I did. I had actually 2 Thanksgivings this year.
That's true.
So
we had one together.
Way too much turkey.
Yep.
Well, if you count that one, that's 3
Oh,
Thanksgivings.
then you had 3 Thanksgivings. Yes, because we did have. Yes, my Thanksgiving was here. I had it with a couple of my friends and my mom. We got together. We made a big
Friendsgiving.
Huge, yeah, Friendsgiving, and we did give thanks, and it was nice.
It was a lot of fun. Definitely want to do that again next year.
Yeah.
So, but bringing us into the holidays here, there's. People get really stressed out around the holidays.
Yes.
I mean, and, to be fair, there's a lot to do. You got to do a lot of cooking. And, you're going to have family coming in from out of town, so you're going to have to clean and make the place nice and tidy. And, you got to worry about people seeing how your house looks. Because, I mean, let's face it. When it's just you, how often do you, pick your socks up off the floor there or something like that?
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, you got to make sure the food's cooked just right and to everybody's liking. And, then, of course, I don't know about you, but you have the family issues as well. Somebody will say something that upsets somebody, or you have all that.
Yep, sometimes that happens. The holidays aren't supposed to be stressful. They're supposed to be a time of, just spending time with family and,
And, I feel like people get caught up in that too much.
I think you're right.
They get
the commercialization.
Absolutely. And sometimes you you just forget to stop and enjoy the moment. You might have busted your ass to get that meal on that table, but then stop and enjoy it. Enjoy the time with the family.
Yep.
Enjoy, because
we're not going to get too into the political scene here on this conversation, but that's why it's important for around the holidays that you go see your family, regardless of your Führer's, your state's Führer's rulings. But it's good to go see your family. You know what I mean? This might be their last one. You know what I mean? You never know. So you should see your family, and the risk, you got to weigh that risk against the reward. Of course, if you're sick, with the flu or COVID or even a common cold, then maybe you don't want to get grandma sick. But otherwise, you don't know.
Use your judgment.
And also let it up to them. If they're willing to take the risk, then let them. You know what I mean? This is America, and it's about freedom of choice, and I think that's one thing that people forget too. That adds to the stress is that they get so caught up in you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's not. You don't have to do anything except spend some time with your family and enjoy each other's company. That's really what that's what Thanksgiving's about. That's what Christmas is about, in addition to other things.
Well, and with that choice, I mean, you have both sides of that coin. If you want to be cautious and you want to stay at home and, you know, make sure you're not going to be a possible catalyst to cause any infections or anything like that, that's your right as well. But regardless, one thing I think we can agree on is the fact that I'm sure COVID has impacted people's holidays in some way.
Oh yeah. With everything going on, absolutely. Whether it's whether someone is actually sick and needs to self quarantine or quarantine themselves, or you live in a state that's trying to prohibit you having so many people in your house with family. I mean, it all comes down. Nobody should be making those decisions except you yourself. That's why we live in this country. Should be up to the people to make the decisions on whether or not they want to go see their family at Christmas time or Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
but like you said, it's also the choice. You know what I mean? If you choose that it's too dangerous for whatever reason and you don't want to, that is your choice. Don't
Absolutely.
do it then.
Regardless of how that breaks down, I'm sure that did add to some stress.
Oh yeah, this year I'm sure has been.
Even that aside, this year people have been financially impacted.
Absolutely.
And, with Christmas around the corner,
yep.
That's going to cause people to be worried about, being able to get their children gifts or things like that, or, extended family, people who you normally buy gifts for, that you might not necessarily be able to do that this year.
Yeah.
And I know unfortunately, I feel there's a lot of emphasis put on gift giving sometimes, more than there should be. But maybe this is the year where you get a little creative.
Yes.
Instead of spending money, if you have a family member who has little children, they haven't been able to have a night out to themselves in a long time, volunteer to watch their kids for a night.
Yeah.
Or maybe volunteer to have them over for dinner more often.
Yeah.
Or just something like that. Maybe a gift of personal, service to them.
Yeah. I agree. It doesn't always have to be money related and stuff. There's other things you can give the people, your time, and I think that's a good idea too, especially with this year with everybody having with everything, the economic impact of coronavirus. It's definitely people are going to be looking for alternatives, you would imagine, for gifts, because not everybody has a lot of money this year. It's been a hard year economically for a lot of people. A lot of people are out of work, but that's what this season's about, though. It's about letting some of that go and spending time with your family, and thinking about the good things.
Yeah.
And,
And ironically, there is a possibility that, having a virus and being economically impacted may have actually drawn families a little closer together. Because a lot of things weren't open, or maybe people were financially impacted. Because I know a lot of families were actually, instead of having home-cooked meals, they were getting big family gatherings and going out to eat somewhere or something like that, like a Boston market or somewhere. And maybe they weren't able to do that this year, so they had to go back to the tradition of having a home-cooked meal.
Yep.
And that would bring the family a little closer together this year.
Yes. And since we are talking a little bit about Thanksgiving, let's give everybody a little history lesson on where Thanksgiving came from. It was actually, the holiday was originally created just after the Civil War by Abraham Lincoln, believe it or not, actually. People always like to say that it dates back to the dinner with the Pilgrims and the Indians, and that was the inspiration for it. But Abraham Lincoln did it after the Civil War. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, he did it as a way to try and bring the country back together after the Civil War.
Okay.
He said he thought we needed a holiday that was more about unity and about bringing people together and giving thanks for what they do have. So it was actually Abraham Lincoln that initiated the holiday. Now, he did get the inspiration from the famous dinner that we learn in school about the Pilgrims and the Indians, but that's just the inspiration for it. That's not the origins. Thanksgiving didn't begin back then. It wasn't until Abraham Lincoln instituted it just after the Civil War. I can't remember the exact year it was that he did it. I'll have to look that up. I'll put it in the description, but it was just after the Civil War ended, that he
Well, he
came
made
up with
the
Thanksgiving.
national holiday.
Yeah, yes, that's when he made
But I
it a
believe
national holiday. Yes.
There was an actual meeting between the Indians and
No,
Pilgrims.
absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying, though. That's what Abraham Lincoln used as inspiration to create this holiday.
Yeah.
He used that instance, which did happen. The dinner, they all gathered together, the Pilgrims and the Indians. Yes, that's right. It did happen. And Abraham Lincoln used that as inspiration, but that wasn't like, he didn't create it for that reason. It was just the inspiration behind it. You know what I mean? It was just the story behind the holiday that he created. It was more about bringing people together after the Civil War and unifying the country. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people forget about that. People are out there, calling holidays racists right now. And, if you actually look at the origins of a holiday like Thanksgiving, then you might learn something, because it's not actually what you think it's about. You know what I mean? It's about giving thanks and coming together and as a family and as a country and unifying, not focusing on what divides us, but focus on what brings us together and what we're thankful for, such as time with your family or friends. And
time with the family. I mean, who doesn't enjoy sitting around the table, eating dinner, and just talking about the good times, or talking about the times, your brother did something stupid, or the time that you did, one thing or another, or, things that make people laugh and, recount the just fun memories.
Yeah, or sitting and listening to Pappy talk about how it used to be like 60 years ago.
Yeah.
When he was 30. That's the thing. That's what you do. That's what I encourage. If you have a thing, any holiday, I don't care what it is. If you go to your family's holiday for a holiday and you have a grandma or a pappy, grandfather, whatever, great grandfather, listen to them. Just sit, let them talk.
Yeah, and if you have
trust me, they will not have a problem. You can ask them the simplest question that you could possibly think of,
and be entertained for hours.
And you will get a speech about the how it used to be back in the day. And I encourage you to do that. It's very informative. You'll learn a lot.
Well, it's kind of funny you bring that up. I'm going to have to jump forward to Christmas here a little bit. One story I remember my grandmother telling me, who's not with us anymore, and it's a story I'll never forget. It was Christmas. It was right around the time of the Great Depression, and her dad was traveling for work. Wasn't even sure if he'd be able to make it home for Christmas, but he was able to, beg, borrow, and steal his way home to spend time with his family on Christmas. And back in those days, they didn't have refrigeration. They had ice boxes, and my grandmother, they didn't have mattresses. They slept in what they called ticks, which were basically big burlap sacks filled with, straw and some soft fluff things. And that year she had gotten an orange for Christmas. So to get an orange, or, a fruit that was made somewhere other than, or grew somewhere other than where you lived, was huge back then.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
There's no trucking industry.
Exactly. And she had said that, it was a little bruised, it was a little overripe, but it was, to the day she died, it was her favorite Christmas gift. She took that thing to school and showed all of her friends at school and carried that thing around with her until, finally she decided it was time to eat it after showing it off.
Yeah.
But, it stopped and made me think. Something as simple as an orange. Today you give a kid an orange, they'd look at you like
yeah. Where are my cookies?
Went senile or something. But it wasn't the actual orange that made that gift so special for her.
Yeah.
It was the thought that went behind that. Her dad picked that up while he was, traveling for work, which meant he had to have been thinking about her weeks before he made home, and picked that up and realized how much she would enjoy that. So,
yeah,
that was just...
That's what the giving is supposed to be about. It's about something, thinking about someone and what might they appreciate. It doesn't have to be something you bought. It could be something you created or something you picked.
Yeah.
Or...
And it also kind of gave me a perspective a little bit on just, think of how rough times were then.
Yeah.
For one orange, to be your most prized possession,
Yeah.
and to be 80 some years old, and that still be your favorite Christmas gift of all time. It blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are stories that you can learn if you sit and talk with your grandparents. I got all kinds of stories to tell you.
I could get my grandma, and even my dad, I could get him talking about things and not necessarily holiday related either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. You can sit down to them anytime. Yeah, you can sit down with them anytime. It doesn't have to be at holidays, but I do encourage you, if the only time you see your grandparents and stuff is at the holidays, is sit down and talk with them. Let them just talk. They will talk, and they will tell you things.
Because you never know when it's going to be that last holiday.
Yes, it is important to get together on those holidays, because like you just said, could be their last one.
I would know firsthand.
Yeah, well, we all do in some respects. Yeah, we all know about the last holiday, so that's why it's important to still get together if your family chooses to do it. So we're going to take a brief intermission, all right? Because as some of you know, we've had technical problems on the Boiling Point podcast. We're going to take a quick break, make sure that we have not had any technical issues thus far, and we will be right back. For us, it will be 10 minutes, but for you, it will only be 10 seconds. Okay. 3, 2. All right, we're back here on the second segment here of episode 19, the Christmas Casual. I want to let everybody know that though we haven't needed her services yet, the Breeze is behind the curtain. So she is also here on this episode. And I also want to let everybody know that coming up, that are going into this segment, Mizpah and I are going to be talking about Christmas, and I wanted to use this opportunity to let everybody know that I will hopefully be doing a Christmas episode. I will hopefully be having Pastor Gavin Whitcomb Sr. and Gavin Whitcomb Jr. on the same show here live. We won't be doing the podcast live to you, but we will do it live to tape. And it'll be a great episode, and I encourage you to look for that over the next 2 or 3 weeks leading up to Christmas. We're not exactly sure when it's going to be yet, but we are going to be trying to get together to do that. It'll be a good event to have Pastor Gavin and Gavin Jr. on the show to talk about Christmas and what Christmas is actually about. But for right now, what Nick and I, Mizpah and I, are going to talk about is a little bit more of the commercial side of Christmas. And things have certainly changed since we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
Both in, the commercialization of it, as, well as what it stands for and what people think it means and stuff. But, when it was, for me, when we were kids, who doesn't want presents, right?
Absolutely.
All kids want presents, of course, that's a big thing. But then as I got a little older, especially in my teenage years, I enjoyed giving gifts as much as I did receiving them as well.
I found I enjoyed that more, actually.
Yes, I agree. Especially when you get the right gift for the right person. It's excellent. But things certainly have changed from when we were kids. So,
right. And when I was a kid, for example, speaking of getting gifts and stuff, I remember my mom would hand me flyers, the advertisements, and tell me to circle the things that I wanted as a kid. Well, that thing would just be connect the dots. There'd be circles here, circle here, circle here. You'd think that it was, Santa Claus bringing you all these gifts, and that Santa Claus was loaded.
Yeah.
And you'd have 500 things circled. And if you only got 3 or 4 of those things, it was still amazing.
Yeah.
Because you thought Santa brought them.
Yeah.
Now, my mom and dad would do things like they'd have a couple things from Santa Claus, a couple things from them.
And usually that's how the list you were talking about, of course, I had to make lists also. They were for Santa Claus. Those are air quotes, everybody. But obviously, spoiler alert. But because they did the same thing. They used to wrap gifts differently. The gifts from Santa Claus were in the tissue paper, the green and red tissue paper that you usually see around the holidays, and anything from my mom or my dad or my stepdad or anybody like from the family, that was wrapped in like real wrapping paper. So Santa Claus was the tissue paper, and the family gifts were the real wrapping paper. And like you just said, that usually Santa Claus brought me something that was at the top of my list, and then I got something that was at the top of my list from my family as well.
And I remember as a kid, I used to always try to catch Santa Claus.
Yeah.
So, I'd try everything you can think of as a kid, like pretend to be sleeping, or, somehow try to, like, will yourself to wake up in the middle of the night. And I'm sure now, looking back on it, my parents hated it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I remember I would do things like, I would, like, army crawl out into the living room, and I would strategize this whole big plan that would take me, forever in kid time to get out there. And
then you fall asleep halfway through executing it.
No, usually I'd make it all the way out and all the way back to bed. Usually there wasn't anything there.
Yep.
Because,
yeah,
my parents were expecting it. But one year, I had executed this flawless plan. Like, army crawled out into the living room, and no Santa Claus, but there were a few presents around the tree. So, now I get the idea. Well, I wonder what I got. So I'd start looking at the gifts. And of course, as a kid, you always start with the big box, right?
Yeah.
So I looked.
Depending on what was on the list, I would look for the size box that I'm looking for, yeah.
And I found one. And my mom's name and my name are similar, especially at night in the dark.
Yeah.
I'd found this really big box that I was absolutely certain had my name on it. So I'm being ever so careful to, like, pull the tape and, painstakingly open this present up because I wanted to have to wrap it back up.
Yeah.
And not get caught. So I get it open, and after spending what felt like an eternity, only to find out it was a gift for my mom. So then I had to wrap it all back up
with no payoff.
With no payoff, and go to bed. And I'm thinking, well, there were a few things under the tree. I'm still going to make out pretty good. I wake up the next morning, and I come out, and the living room was loaded.
Yep.
Like, I had to open presents just to make it through the living room to get to the kitchen. And I still remember that because that was like my big Christmas. That because every parent tries to do a big Christmas for their kids.
I mean, I would imagine most parents try and provide them with the best Christmas that they can for their kids.
Oh,
sometimes it can be better. Some years can be better than others. So yeah, that's pretty like normal.
An all-out Christmas.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah,
and it was just epic. But I'll never forget it because of my epic fail at dark 30 in the morning.
Yep. I never tried to get up to catch Santa Claus, but one year, my mom and my stepdad were actually the first ones up in the house, and they woke us up, and that was the last year I allowed that to happen. They regretted that decision because every year after that, I was up at 6 a.m. Sticky buns in the oven, waiting, ready to cook. They were, like when they came out, when we went to go get them, we put the sticky buns in the oven, wait until they were ready or just about ready, and then go wake them up. So that way there was no delay. Because the first year after they got up first, the next time we got up first, but then we had to wait until they had their coffee, and they had to have something to eat. And so the next year we said, nope, sticky buns in the oven, coffee pot running, and everything was ready. When they get up, they can grab their coffee pot, grab their sticky bun, and go right to the living room. Do not pass go.
No time to open their eyes.
No, there was no time for that. We wanted to get in there and open the presents. I never tried to catch Santa Claus, but after that one year where I wasn't up early enough, I certainly made sure that didn't happen again.
And I also remember, like, the first time I was able to, my first job, I had gotten a bunch of money. I didn't have a bunch of bills. So, that year I decided I had saved up money, from a few paychecks, and I wanted to kind of pay my parents back a little bit. I went all out on them. And I remember the look on their face that year, because they had no idea that I was doing this. I had hid gifts in my trunk for weeks.
Yeah.
And the look in their face.
Yeah.
The surprise, the shock,
I think
the awe.
I think that's. I mean, I had the same thing the first year that I actually really bought Christmas presents for somebody, like on my own, without them being there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With my own money and stuff. That was a special Christmas as well. Very memorable for me as well, because it's the first time you're buying with your own money. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
When you're a kid buying gifts with your parents' money,
Yeah.
then when you earn it yourself and you're buying it, it's much different.
But even as a kid, it was still fun when, like, if
Yeah.
our school would have the little, like, secret Santa shop. Mm-hmm. So your parents would give you some money and you could go into this little, like, fabricated gift shop to buy your parents gifts. And you'd always painstakingly spend hours in there trying to figure out exactly what gift would be best for them. And then you also had the kids who would go in there and find out how to spend as little as possible so that they could get themselves something too.
Yeah.
And I never really quite understood that.
No.
But, you know,
Some
teach their
people.
own.
Yeah, some people. But yeah, that's what Christmas is about. It's about giving more than getting the gifts. I think of course, there's more to it than that. It's not just about Christmas, it's about giving and stuff like that. But that's where the family aspect and the spirit of Christmas that people talk about. It's about giving somebody something that is special to them, and it makes you feel good by doing that too.
Yeah.
So,
And that also leads into, again, spending family quality time together.
yeah,
And some families have all kinds of different little traditions that they do. Like,
Yep.
some families they come open presents in their pajamas.
yeah,
Some families get dressed, they go to church first thing, then they come back and do presents. Every family has their own little way of doing it.
yeah,
And you know what? That's okay.
yeah,
Whatever your tradition is, even if it's a tradition that you just made,
yeah.
fantastic. Do it.
Yep. As long as it's about giving and what the spirit of Christmas is about, then that's great. Do it however you want to do it.
And spend that time with that family.
Yeah.
Have good times, eat good food, create good memories.
Yes. I agree with all of those things.
And
don't not do it because your governor says so. So yeah, that's spending time together. That's what the holidays are about. That's what people need to return back to, and stop distorting what it's actually about. When it comes down to it, it's really about family and friends and spending time with them more than it is about all the other nonsense that's out there about them, both Thanksgiving and Christmas.
yeah.
Well, I think that's you want to call it there. I think we're going to call it there, everybody. So thank you for tuning in to episode 19, the Christmas Casual, just a casual conversation between Mizpah and myself about Thanksgiving and Christmas and what they're supposed to be about and spending time with your families. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, all of those things. And don't forget to check out Buy Some Apparel, bonfire.com/store/JDEDESIGNz with a Z. Buy some apparel. Support the podcast.
And Merry Christmas.
Yep, and yes, I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, and I'm going to hopefully be seeing you guys again before Christmas, but, stay in the Christmas spirit and have a nice day, I guess, right? And so, that's Mizpah, I'm JD, and that's the end.